Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I call this February 9th, 2022 meeting of the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority to order. Chair Quesada and Trustee Rael are excused and all other members are present this evening via video conference. I'd like to welcome back Commissioner O'Malley and to welcome our new City Councilor, Councilor Feeblecorn, to the board. Next, we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance, and we will have a moment of silence, and then the pledge led by Commissioner O'Malley.
Please join me in moments of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I seem to be having an echo. Do you hear it? Okay, let me see what's going on. Well, just continue. I'll figure this out.
Okay. I can hear the echo as well. So next item is item 3, approval of the minutes. I make a motion to approve the November 17th, 2021 minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
I didn't catch who made the second, but there was a motion and there was a second by Commissioner O'Malley. And Ms. Carrion, will you please call the roll?
Councilor Pena?
Yes.
Councilor Feeblecorn?
Yes.
Councilor Jones?
Yes.
Member Nair?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Malley?
Yes.
Commissioner Piscotti?
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Carrion. Next, we have proclamations and awards. Item A under that is Employee Recognition Awards. We have several recipients. We have Mr. Mark Brown and Patricia Sylvan, Joshua Doyle, Jessica Ortiz, Monique Luis, Jonathan Herrera, Michelle Sanchez, and then we have Leigh Gaynor, Crescenda Lobato, Jessica Steen, Juan Steen, Yolanda Garcia, Anastasia Ryan, Brendan Shenick, Deborah Garcia, Megan McDowell, and then we have Tracy Dallin, Ivan Cortez, and all of the recipients were just, I have a note on here. I was just, I think, going to read the names, but I think everyone is aware of the Employee Recognition Program. This is something that we kind of adopted at the City of Albuquerque as well. We don't have any type of award with it, but just really recognizing employees that go over and above, and we appreciate you and all the hard work and your contributions that you've given to the Water Authority and to our constituents. So thank you all. Next, we have public comment. As previously stated, public comment was accepted prior to the meeting via email. And I think I actually didn't read that. So if you would indulge me for a moment, I will read that. As posted on our website and noted on our published Water Authority agenda, this meeting is being held via video conference. The Water Authority accepted general public comment and comment on the meeting specific agenda items written in the form via email through 4 p.m. today, and these comments were distributed to all the board members. So I'm sure you all received them as did I. Next item we have is announcements and communication. Our next scheduled meeting will be March 23rd, 2022 at 5 p.m. Via video conference. Next is Technical Customer Advisory Committee vacancy. There is a vacancy on the Technical Customer Advisory Committee. If board members have any nominations, please direct them to the online applications on the Water Authority website at www.abcwua.org. Thank you for considering it. Introduction of legislation. we have several items. Item A is R22-5, authorizing an agreement for water and sewer service for La Cuentesta. The third, Mr. Chris Cadena.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is for an introduction for development agreement for a proposed 248 single-family detached subdivision in the northwest part of town. The property lies within two pressure zones, which is 4W and 3WR in the Volcano Trunk, and service is contingent upon developer constructing some water lines and sewer lines that serve the property. The property will be required to pay the utility expansion charges and the water resource charges as well. I stand for any questions.
Madam Chair, I can't hear you.
Counselor Pena, I think you're on mute.
Thank you. If there's any questions from the board and Luz, I can't really see everyone on the screen. So if there's any hands raised, if you could call on them for me, I would appreciate it.
We don't have anyone's hand raised.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we will move on to R22-6, authorizing an agreement for water and sewer service for Good Sense Holding LLC. Mr. Cadena, once more.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is for an introduction for a development agreement for a new RV retail facility located at 12505 Central Avenue, which is along Central, just east of Atrisco Vista Boulevard. The property is currently undeveloped within the unincorporated area of Bernalillo County. This property lies within pressure zone 6W of the Atrisco Trunk, and service for this development will require water and wastewater extensions, and the development will also be required to pay the applicable UECs and water resource charges. I stand for any questions.
Vice Chair Pena, hit unmute.
Thank you, Luz.
Sorry.
So next we'll move on to R22-7, authorizing the execution and delivery of water project fund loan grant agreement by and between the New Mexico Water Trust Board and the New Mexico Finance Authority and the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority in the total amount of $7.7 million. Mr. Mark Sanchez.
Madam Chair, members of the board. This is the Ashley project. As you mentioned, 7.7 million is the total amount that we will receive from the State Water Trust Board and the New Mexico Finance Authority. Of that amount, 90% is a grant. So 6.9 million will not have to be paid back. The 10% or 770,000 will be a loan that will be paid for by the Navajo Nation. So the Water Authority will not subsidize this project in any way, shape, or form. By way of status, the design is being conducted by a firm by the name of Souter Miller and Associates. They are being paid for by the Navajo Nation independently. Once their design is complete, and it's getting close, they will turn that over to the Water Authority. Then we will take charge of the project by bidding it out, awarding the contract, and beginning construction and managing the project through completion. I'd stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. We have a question from Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a question. I just want to thank Mark Sanchez and the other members of the Water Authority. Early on, we had there was a resolution to move forward in support of this project. This project is within my district. It's something that the folks there, the community there, has been waiting for, clean water for many years. And I'm really happy to see that it's in design. I don't know what this design status is, but that it's in design. And I'm just really pleased to hear that things are moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we also have Ms. Nair with her hand raised.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Sorry, I seem to have an echo too. But I just wanted to add my thanks to Commissioner O'Malley's. When this first came to the mayor's attention, Director Sanchez sat down and sort of explained the whole history of the project to me. And I know he's worked really hard, and as has the whole team, to make this happen. So just wanted to add my and the mayor's thanks to everybody who made this happen. Thank you.
Madam Chair, that we've been in communication with the Indian Health Service, who has reached out to us about the possibility of sending water to Tahajali in the period between the construction begins and water is delivered. So that's still a possibility, that we might have a weekly or biweekly delivery to them in some kind of a water tank that they could access during this period.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. I know this it took a lot of work from lots of folks, so really appreciate all the work. I see Commissioner O'Malley's hand raised once more.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I'm not sure what the process is for approving something like that, Mr. Sanchez, but whatever we can do to support that effort, I would appreciate it. I know, during this time, and especially during the drought, so when we had the last couple of years and beyond, earlier, the Water Authority did send out a truck now and again so that the folks there could get some clean water for drinking. So yeah, if we need to somehow approve something like that, I'd be happy to support something like that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And I agree, Commissioner O'Malley, and with your sentiments also, Ms. Nair. I mean, I think this is just such an important project. The magnitude and the amount of people that this is going to be able to help with, the collaboration from everybody has been paramount. So thank you again. With that, we'll move on to item 8, which is the consent agenda. And I would motion approval of the consent agenda. And we have all the items below, A through I. And if there's a second on the consent agenda, I will have Ms. Carrion do the roll. There's a second from Commissioner O'Malley.
Vice Chair Peña? That was a yes. I'm sorry, I muted you.
Yes.
Counselor Feeblecorn? Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Member Nair?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Malley?
Yes.
Commissioner Piscotti?
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Carrion. We're now on approvals. R2132, amendment to the approved operating capital implementation program budgets of the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority for fiscal year ending 2030-2022. Marta Ortiz.
Good evening, Madam Chair and respected board members. For your consideration is Resolution R2132 that provides information to support a request to amend the fiscal year 2022 operating and capital improvement budget program budgets for the following. The budget to receive $500,000 that was previously approved in agreement with the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation and the Water Authority for a one-time lease of 500 acre-feet of water. This will be appropriated in the Water 2120 fund. The budget increase of 17 million that was received during the recent revenue bond sale that will be used for large interceptor renewal programs. 6.5 million increase to support the continuing design and construction of infrastructure at the non-potable water to Intel. And lastly, the $124,000 to appropriate the receipt of special assessments excuse me, for the San Juan Chama Contractors Association to complete phase 1 of the asset management plan. This legislation was originally introduced at the November 17th board meeting. Since then, a floor amendment is being requested this evening due to the cost estimate of the design and construction of infrastructure needed to supply the non-potable water to Intel. This agreement has been finalized, and therefore line 18 of the resolution will now reflect 45.5 million, which Intel is committed and has agreed to reimburse the Water Authority 100% of this budget. I stand for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Ms. Ortiz? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve R2132. So if there's a motion, a second, then we have some amendments. An amendment. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
motion. I'll second motion.
Thank you. So there's a motion and a second to approve R2132, and then we have some floor amendments. So we have to move, I'd like to move floor amendment R2132. And again, Ms. Ortiz, can you just explain the amendment real quickly?
Sure. This legislation was originally appropriated 6.5 million increase to the budget. Since then, since November, we had finalized an agreement with Intel for them to provide the whole estimated amount of the project in its as a whole. So $45.5 million is the agreed upon amount that's recently been signed by Intel and the Water Authority.
Did you need a second, Madam Chair? No. You're on mute, Madam Chair.
Yes, a second, please.
Okay. I second.
Thank you. And then Ms. Carrion, if you could call the roll on the amendment. Ms. Carrion, if you can call the roll on the amendment. I think she mutes me and then I don't realize she muted me, but I'm too loud over here. Thank you.
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Feeblecorn,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Member Nair,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Malley,
Yes.
Commissioner Viscotti.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. And the bill has been moved. There was a second by Commissioner O'Malley and amended. If there's any questions from the board, if not, Ms. Carrion, can you call the roll?
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Feeblecorn,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Member Nair,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Malley,
Yes.
Commissioner Viscotti.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. We are now on to R22-3, authorizing the removal of certain uncollectible debt from the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority accounts receivable records FY 2018 and prior. Mr. Mark Sanchez.
Madam Chair, this item you allow us to write off $59,497 of uncollectible accounts that are more than 4 years old, and it conforms to state statute, and we're required to do this. I'd stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez.
I move approval.
There's a motion. There's a
Second.
motion and a second. There's a motion and a second by Counselor Jones.
Thank you.
With that, are there any questions? Seeing none, Ms. Carrion, can you call the roll?
Counselor Pena,
Yes.
Counselor Feeblecorn,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
Member Nair,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Malley,
Yes.
Commissioner Piscotti.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. So now we're at R22-4, authorizing the adoption of the 2022 Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority Hazard Mitigation Plan. Mr. Andres Santiago.
Good afternoon, members of the board. We are seeking your approval for the adoption of the 2021 Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Authority Hazard Mitigation Plan. Some of you have probably already seen this at the city or the council side, the commissioner side. The hazard mitigation plan was a multi-jurisdictional effort, and the Water Authority is now part of this plan. Water Authorities has access now and opportunity for grant funding. I stand for any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Santiago? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve R22-4?
So moved.
There's a motion
I'll
and a
second.
second by Commissioner Piscotti. Thank you, ladies. Any questions? Any additional questions? No. So, Ms. Carrion, can you please call the roll?
Counselor Peña.
Yes.
Counselor Feeblecorn.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Member Nair.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
Commissioner Piscotti. That passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item D is C22-8, and this is approving the 2022 Memorandum of Agreement for the Middle Rio Grande Endangerment Species Collaborative Program. Mr. Mark Kelly.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. The Middle Rio Grande Endangered Species Collaborative Program is a partnership of 16 federal, state, tribal, local, and nonprofit signatory agencies working together to support the recovery of endangered species in the Middle Rio Grande. The Water Authority has been a member of the collaborative program since inception in 2003. This memo of agreement will allow the Water Authority to continue to participate in the collaborative program efforts that benefit endangered species. And I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Kelly?
Move
Seeing
approval.
none. So there's
Second.
a motion. There's a motion and a second, and I think that was Councilor Feeblecorn. So with that, if there's no additional questions, then Ms. Carrion, can you please call the roll?
I think it was Trudy. For the
Thank you, Councilor Jones.
Sorry, I can't. Everything is all blurred together. Anyway, yes.
So Counselor Peña.
Yes.
Counselor Feeblecorn.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Member Nair. Commissioner
Yes.
O'Malley.
Yes.
Commissioner Piscotti.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Carrion. So now we're on item number 10. This is other business, and we have OB 22-1, and this is the election of the officer. So first we will elect the chair, and then we'll elect the vice chair. I want to first start by recognizing Commissioner Quesada for his service this past year. He's done an excellent job, as many of you know. He's always traveling, and this is, I think, the first meeting he's missed of the Water Utility Authority. He said he was very disappointed not to be here this evening, but we want to just thank him for all his work. And then it says thank Councilor Peña as vice chair, so on my script. So anyway, but Commissioner Piscotti.
Oh, I'd like to nominate Commissioner O'Malley for chair.
Oh, we actually haven't went into the nominations yet. I was just was just going through that the first part and just making the announcement. So sorry about that.
It's on the city side this time, right?
It's actually on the city side, yes, this go around. So, well, with that again, I know usually we do some kind of formalities, and I know the Water Utility Authority will give the commissioner a plaque. So, just want to again appreciate all his work during this time. And I think it was actually, and I apologize, it was Commissioner O'Malley raised her hand first, and then Commissioner Piscotti. So I think what we'll do right now is we'll go into nominations for the chair. Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And while I appreciate the nomination by Commissioner Piscotti, this is our tradition is to switch off for county and leadership and city. So I will be nominating Councilor Pena for chair.
One second.
Thank you. So I'll accept the nominations, and if there's any other nominations, and I don't know if Robert's rule still does it that way, but is there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, I guess it's by acclamation. So thank you all. I appreciate it, and I'm so sorry about having all these technical difficulties tonight. I moved my office around, so you know how hard it is to get Zoom or WebEx set up. So thanks for being patient during my challenges this evening. Next, we have Vice Chair, and I'd actually like to nominate Commissioner O'Malley for Vice Chair. Are you agreeing with the nomination, Ms. Commissioner Piscotti? Okay, so thank you. There's a second by Commissioner Piscotti. Commissioner O'Malley, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do. Thank you all very much.
Okay, so are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, congratulations, Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you. Okay, so next we will move on to under other business, OB 22-2, and this is the drought update by Mr. Mark Kelly.
Sorry about that. Madam Chair and members of the board, I will be sharing my screen with you to talk about drought. I'm Mark Kelly. I'm the Water Resources Division Manager. Looking at our current situation compared to early December, just 2 months ago, according to the U.S. Drought Monitor, there is more extreme drought in New Mexico. The county continues to have basically the same amount of extreme drought. Looking forward to the next 3 months, our precipitation outlook looks to be below normal, and our temperature outlook looks to be above normal, which is bad for our drought situation. I wanted to talk tonight about our snowpack and looking into the main areas where we get a lot of our surface water in the San Juan River watershed, where our San Juan Channel water comes from, as well as the Rio Grande headwaters. We're looking at a median year approximately in the San Juan and a little bit less than median in the Rio Grande headwaters. So the black line represents approximately where we are right now. And as you can see, we haven't reached peak snow, which happens in around March, but we are just about at average for San Juan. We are below where we were at for 2020, but we're slightly higher than where we were at this time last year in 2021. For the Rio Grande headwaters, we are below average for our snowpack, and 2020 and 2021 were higher than we're seeing today. We do have a ways to go in our snow year. So there is a chance that things could get better. But this is a La Nina year, which usually corresponds to less than average snowpack for the Western United States. So things are looking like the drought is going to be continuing. Our GPCD is less than our goals, which is good right now, and our groundwater pumping is less than our goals right now, which is good, or less than 120% of our goals, which is good. But due to these levels of snowpack and the extreme drought found in our area, continuing with our drought watch is prudent. So I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I just want to say that, you know, it
Yes, Madam Chair and Madam Vice Chair, you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Kelly, I mean, really not a question, just an observation. It just seems as though, you know, December was just remarkably warm and dry. And so usually January, February, we've kind of made up some of those numbers in the past, haven't we? I mean, you know, sometimes I try not to be so pessimistic about how the outlook is, but it seems as though sometimes it'll come later in the winter.
That's true, Madam Chair, that a lot of times our snowpack does come in February, March, and we could keep our fingers crossed. Hopefully that will happen.
Yeah, I'm really hoping for that this year. I can see Commissioner O'Malley has her hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I at one time I heard you know, that the pumping was primarily or exclusively the water authority was pumping groundwater. Are you still doing both surface and groundwater now?
Madam Chair and Commissioner O'Malley, yes, right now we are utilizing both groundwater and surface water, and we do have our surface water plant up and running at a good clip, and providing most of the water for the service area right now.
Okay. And how does this affect irrigators of this plant? I mean, I assume that somehow you are in communication with the MRGCD, and how does this affect? I mean, they're going to have their plan for irrigation coming up. Where are we with MRGCD? I know that sometimes we sort of like lend them water. Could you tell me where that's at?
Madam Chair and Commissioner O'Malley, in terms of where we are with MRGCD, we meet with MRGCD quite often, not only before the irrigation season, but during the irrigation season. And we haven't really developed our operating plan for the water years, they call it, the spring and summer. And so we're waiting to see kind of some more prognostications before we develop that, and we do talk to MRGCD about that. But the water that we're taking out of the river comes from our San Juan Chama water that is stored in Abiquiu Reservoir. So that water is released in Abiquiu, and then 2 days later it reaches us at the intake structure by Alameda, and we utilize it there. So it's not really affecting any water that would be available to any farmers or anything like that. We're not taking any water that would be used by MRGCD.
Okay, well, to be honest, I wasn't aware of that. I know where the intake is off of, where the plant is, right? And you're saying that you actually, the water that's stored in Abiquiu actually has, you access it uh, further up, is what you're saying.
Yes, we have to communicate with the Army Corps of Engineers on a daily basis to let them know how much water to release out of Abiquiu so that we can utilize it 2 days later here in Albuquerque.
Okay. And this it is it is very unfortunate that we're going through this drought. We've been actually in a drought for some time now, and I just have to applaud people who, I guess as a city, really, we have been very good at conserving water during these times, and so we're going to have to continue to do that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Malley. And I guess I could just relate it to the water. When you're doing the re-injection plant that you have set up, is that contributing to, just in terms of, saving water and making sure that, we have all the flow that we need? What impact is that re-injection plant doing?
Madam Chair, when we are doing what you call reinjection, that's we call it aquifer storage and recovery. And so that is when we'll take some of our San Juan Chama water that got released out of Abiquiu and processed by our water treatment plant, and we'll put that down a well and save it for later. So it's a great time to be doing it right now when demands are low on the system and there's excess capacity for the plant to be cleaning water to be able to put it into the aquifer and save for later. And we have an account that we've established with the Office of the State Engineer where we will be able to utilize that water at a later date and draw on that savings account at a later date. That's going on as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions, thank you, Mr. Kelly, for the update. We'll move on to OB 22-3. This is voluntary occurrence monitoring for contaminants of emerging concern. Ms. Danielle Shurin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm here today to present a summary of a water quality report that you all received in your board notes. The report is called the Voluntary Occurrence Monitoring for Contamination of Emerging Concerns. Contaminants of Emerging Concerns, I'm sorry. And I'm Danielle Shurin, I'm the Compliance Division Manager. Contaminants of emergent concern is a range of unregulated substances that have been historically present in the environment in very, very small amounts. Recent scientific interest has been in these substances because they have shown to be present in streams and rivers due to domestic wastewater discharges and the potential to impact aquatic life. Contaminants of emerging concern, the categories of these have expanded. They used to be primarily pharmaceuticals and personal care products, such as detergents, artificial sweeteners. They've expanded to include detergents, artificial sweeteners, industrial chemicals, and flame retardants. The substances that the Water Authority focused on monitoring in this study are typically introduced to the sewer by personal use or consumption, typically through flushing and showering. Involuntary occurrence monitoring means that we're not required to check for these substances, but the Water Authority began to check for them when treating surface water for drinking in around 2008. So historically, in 2008 and 2009, we did a first study of pharmaceuticals and personal care products only, and we tested 113 substances at 5 locations throughout the drinking water and wastewater system. And overall, the results of that historical study showed 9% of those substances were detected. And as expected, it was higher concentrations found in the wastewater historically. We completed this study again in 2018-19 and tested the same 113 contaminants. And those are 2 lab methods, and those are primarily the pharmaceutical and personal care products. And this time we also added sucralose. And sucralose is an artificial sweetener with the brand name of Splenda. And we chose that because it's persistent through the human body and the treatment process. So it does prove to be a good indicator of domestic wastewater in our source water. Here are the monitoring locations that we collected data from. It's an increase from the historical study in that we included some collections and the reuse system. So we start with the north reuse system, and that's river water. And then we look at river water before it goes into the treatment plant. We look at treated drinking water, and then we look at 2 places on the east and west side in the sewer, in the collection system in the sewer. And we look at the influent to the wastewater treatment plant, the effluent that goes into the river, and then our reuse water that goes into our reuse system for irrigation. And this is the same description in a table form, and I'll skip through that. We wanted to understand how seasonality may impact these concentrations. So we looked at river data and chose 4 target seasons. The base flow is January and March, which we're in now. High flow season is spring runoff season, May through June. Irrigation is kind of the monsoon season, and low flow is the fall, September to November. There was comprehensive quality assurance and control in the study. We completed a monitoring plan to include grab sampling, and the sample collection procedures are very particular, and they're designed for very low level metals. And so it's a very particular collection process. Field blanks and method blanks were used to indicate any problems with the sample collection or the lab analysis. And here are the overall findings, and I just want to indicate this is really a snapshot. So we collected at each location 4 times, so once in each season, and there was 114 contaminants that tested each event. So it's just a snapshot of what's happening throughout the system very quickly. So you can see in this graph, the green is the detection, the purple is the number of substances that were not detected at each location. And as expected, it's lower in the river, lowest in the treated drinking water, and increases as you see the untreated wastewater here. That's the highest that we see, which is expected, and then treated wastewater and reuse. And sucralose, it held true to being a good indicator. We do see it in the river, which we do understand there are discharges upstream in the river, so that was expected. So it's in the river before we pull it in, and we see it through the process, and it's not very impacted by treatment. And then after human consumption in the sewer system, we do see an increase in sucralose. So it proved to be a pretty good indicator of domestic waste. And you can see this high flow season was a little bit lower for everything in the riverside, and we just kind of attribute that to dilution from the spring. When we're looking at effectiveness of treatment, overall we saw 55 to 95% effective treatment in the drinking water, and 66 to 75% for wastewater treatment. So we are effectively treating, even though it's not one of our objectives at this time. And the seasonal changes, You know, there is some difference. I think we saw the biggest difference here in the high flow season, but with a snapshot and only, you know, one sample at each location for each of these seasons, it's hard to draw conclusions in what that means. I think, you know, I think we can say that we see some variation throughout the season. And when we look at the substances that were detected in drinking water, these were other substances that were detected in the historical study. Here is the overlap, which were in both the historical and current, and here is what we saw in the current study. So you can see there was a reduced number of substances that we saw in the current study. But again, since both of these are a snapshot, it's really hard to say why that occurred. We can just say that we saw less. In terms of substances detected in drinking water, these sterols are what was the highest detection, and plant sterols or phytosterols are steroids derived from plants. So they can be naturally found in fruits and vegetables, but they're also used as a pharmaceutical to lower blood cholesterol. So again, it could be some natural influence and then some pharmaceuticals. And, you know, I'm going to point out here on this slide, the concentration is nanograms per liter. That is a very, very small unit that we're talking about here. So just to emphasize that tiny unit, we'll look at this, some of these sterols in terms of dosing. So we have the amount that we detected. So we'll look at camp sterol. The amount that we detected in the water is 11 nanograms per liter. The commonly prescribed dose is 28 milligrams per day. So the conversion here is going from liquid to solid dose. And when you convert that into how much water would it take to get one prescribed dose, at 2 liters per day, it would take 3,400 days or years of consuming 2 liters per day to meet one dose of 28 milligrams per day. So these are tiny, tiny units. It's a very small amount that we're seeing and detecting. Laboratory methods for these are improving over time. So, you know, we expect to be able to detect them better and more accurately into the future. And also, you know, there's toxicology and understanding of impacts to human health that are happening too at the EPA level. So, you know, there's routine processes where we look at some of these things that are not regulated to see if they should be regulated, and data collection is just part of that. So the amounts that we are finding in these studies are very tiny, and this table helps put that in perspective. All right, that's the end of the summary. Is there any questions?
Are there any questions? Councilor Feeblecorn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wondering, you know, I understand that the levels of all of these are very small and that they're unlikely to impact humans at this level. But are there any studies or any concern around the impact to potential wildlife ingestion?
Yeah, you know, I think that's why we do start to look at it. Aquatic life specifically is sort of a trigger of how we look at these. You know, I don't have any aquatic life data that shows if they've been impacted in the river. But, you know, in other states and things, that the hormone compounds or hormone impacting compounds can have impacts in aquatic life. And so they are starting to look at those. And again, a lot of it is how well can we accurately see those tiny amounts. and measure those and compare those. And it's ongoing, and we'll keep developing.
Madam Chair, if I can have one.
Absolutely.
So,
Councilor.
you did this 10 years ago, yet again now. What's the plan moving forward for another study of our specific locale, and then also for monitoring those studies for impact on wildlife?
I would say monitoring for the impact on wildlife is outside of our scope, my scope right now in terms of what we're looking at. We'll be looking at as some of these unregulated contaminants become regulated, then we get more involved in studying them. And I think over time, say we do it again in 10 years, we'll have a better understanding of specifically which of these substances have impacts to aquatic and human health, and we'll bring that to the study. So I don't think that it'll be research that we'll be completing, but we'll bring that research into our next study in terms of the substances that we choose and how we conduct it.
And I know Councilor Feeblecorn seems to be frozen. I don't know if she had any additional questions, but we'll wait and see if she unfreezes and if anyone else has any additional questions. I don't, Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering, it's been a while. I wasn't on the board last year, so how are we doing with education around what not to put in the system and that it can be harmful? We have a heightened awareness, I think, as a society about, certain products and that they can contaminate the groundwater and that sort of thing. But typically, these products they cost more than, going to the dollar store and getting some soap. You want to get the soap that doesn't contaminate or doesn't, affect wildlife. You're going to pay more for it. So, and then people they just either puts everything down the sink or flush down the toilet. So I was just wondering in terms of education, what we're doing.
Madam Chair, Commissioner O'Malley, I think our education primarily at this point focuses on hazardous chemicals and grease and things that are acute and significant impacts to our sewer system. But you're right. I think more education could be developed in terms of how some of these common substances can impact as well.
Well, it's just that Councilor Feeblecorn mentioned, the effect on wildlife, which is huge. I mean, that affects us, right? I think sometimes we think of those things separately, but we do have, and we want to encourage wildlife, and we want a sustainable river and all those other things. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilor Feeblecorn, did you want to add to your comments? I know you froze for a second.
Sorry about that, Madam Chair.
Okay, seeing none, I think just really off of the comments of both the commissioner and the counselor, perhaps the water authority maybe could look at some kind of educational campaign, because it's something I think that we all think about when we toss something down the sink or we see things being poured down the sink. I know, although, some of these items, when you talk about stuff like ciprofloxacin and all these, antibiotics, it's really scary. It is an emerging concern, I think. And as the population grows, it's just bigger and bigger, right? And so I think if at the Water Authority, we can kind of be in front of it in terms of, not necessarily waiting for whether some of these products are going to be regulated or not, but perhaps just start looking at means on how we can educate people about what should and shouldn't be poured down the drain or put down the toilet. So with that, I think we'll move on, and seeing that there's no other questions, I will adjourn this meeting of the Water Authority. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. And thanks for your patience with me this evening.